Thank you so much. It's Kenji, what's your last name? Bellavinia. Great, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. The choir is off, I know. Who knew that they got a week off, but occasionally it happens. But then we get amazing musicians. Thank you both for joining us. Welcome to the Mount Vernon Unitarian Church, a welcoming community for seekers of all types. My name is Reverend Ian White-Marr, and I'd like to extend a special welcome to people who are here for the first time, or maybe it's your first couple of times. I'll be outside after the service during coffee hour. I'd love to meet you. Please come up, say hello. And as always, our people online, it is great to have you. I love getting emails from you. Please keep sending stuff in, making calls. I really, really do enjoy everything that comes in from you, so please keep doing that. We have a children's chapel for our members who are in 4th grade and younger, and it takes place in the carriage house. And if your child is the child is always welcome here in our service. That is never a problem. If you decide that your child's being a little bit fussy, there is a nursery that's right down the hall. Audio's piped in case you still want to hear. And if not, you can stand in the hallway. That was a joke. I gotta warm up my jokes. I'm just going to repeat this a couple more times. We've sort of adjusted our order of service so that our youth, so we can sing our youth out and to make it a little more interactive while we're here. And we've also flipped the order of the meditation and the lighting of the candles. So I'll guide us first into a meditation and a prayer, followed by a period of silence, and Ria will start to play the piano after a little bit, and that'll be your sign to come forward and light the candle. I'll also model it for us, just so you know. And our final sort of change in the offertory is that in the announcements is that the offertory is now going to be accepted during the announcements. And in fact, we can start taking it right now. For February, we're sharing the plate with an organization called No Child Goes Hungry, which believes that we have a moral obligation to provide food for children on weekends, school holidays, school closures like snow days, and during the summer when government-provided free and reduced-price lunches are not available. So please be as generous as you can. Special event today, following the service, we're having our first Vision Drive event where we are linking the sermons to the mission of the church. So we'll be meeting actually right in here. 50 of you registered, which is amazing. If you did not register, that's no problem. It just means you didn't get the advanced materials, but it's not really that big of a deal. Just come join us here after coffee hour. If you did register, you will have seen that we're starting to turn the sermons into a podcast, and connecting it to an online course. Now, the course will not be ready for another couple of weeks, few more weeks, but you can enjoy the podcast for now. You can be like, what was it that Ian said? Do I still agree? Let me go see, and you can listen to it again. Thank you, everyone who came yesterday to our memorial service for Ann Ulm. The family was very touched. This coming weekend, we're holding memorial services for Dana Green. On Saturday evening, there'll be a contemplative invocation of Dana's spirit. And on Sunday following service, there'll be the more traditional service with sharing. Longtime member Ralph Slauson has moved down the street from us. Welcome back, Ralph. It's good to be having us. And our lay minister today is Isabel Arnold. With that, let us begin our service. Please join in our first statement is number 287, Faith in Large Liberty.
Faith of the large liberty, source of the light expanding, law of the church that is to be
We light this chalice in memory of the courage of those who have struggled for freedom, the persistence of those who have struggled for justice, and the love of those who have built beloved communities to carry on the light of hope. Please join me in reciting the words of our covenant, which can be found in the order of service. Love is the teaching of this church. The quest of truth is its daily task, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in community, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. This is our covenant with each and with all.
You may be seated.
Please join in singing hymn number 1011, 1011 in the Teal hymnal, Return Again. And again, that's the Teal hymnal, hymn 1011, 1011. I invite you to follow the hymn inward in that great search for who we are, born and reborn again, moment after moment after moment. Let's connect to our breath coming in and out. Connect perhaps to the longing that is moving through us. The faith of the free, the larger liberty. Just find yourself here. Once again.
Please join me as we sing our children out. Who wants to lead us here? You gonna lead us? Great.
Bob Frasca, one of the founding partners of the architectural firm where I work, would refer to projects as their design. When I first heard this as an intern, it was an odd phrasing. I mean, sure, the clients own it, but they hired us as the designers. How could the end product be their design? Aren't we the ones doing the work? Pouring in our blood, sweat, and tears every day? Frasca explained that design had to be derived from their needs, goals, and aspirations. We just facilitate bringing that out. My mentors reinforced that ethos, humbly and skillfully listening to the desires of clients and the client's staff and the people and communities that they serve. It still took me a few years, though, to get it. What made this ethos really click for me came on my first healthcare project. The client was a major cancer care institution with a dense campus of buildings in Boston. They wanted to expand their capacity, and we were brought on board as part of the team to help bring that to life. This was a new tower, 15 floors above ground and 7 levels of parking below. Across the street was a pediatric oncology unit where kids would come for their chemotherapy infusions, which can last for hours. The kids in construction are a great match. They'd watch the excavators ballet, dipping the arm to scoop the dirt, swinging it over, piling the dirt and tamping it down, and repeating and repeating. And the noisy pile driver, and the concrete trucks, and the cranes, and all the people moving about the site as the building took shape before their eyes. Well, the steel workers, knowing that these kids were watching, collaborated with the nurses on that unit. Each day, the nurses would write the names of the kids present on a piece of paper and tape it to the windows that were facing the construction. The steel workers would then spray paint the names onto the beams before raising them into place. Can you imagine being a kid and seeing your name on a steel beam being hoisted by a crane? That is so cool. Can you imagine being a parent, knowing that your kid's name was now part of this building? Of course, we have to fireproof the steel to keep the structure safe. So those names became encased. We all knew they were still there, but we could only see them in our memory. The story could end here, and you would know that those steel workers brightened the kids' days. Well, our client called. the doctors, nurses, and techs who were going to be working there. They asked for this story to be memorialized in a stair tower that they would be using every day to remind them of why they were there. So we got a list of the names, and we figured out how to fit them all in, spray painted in different colors on the stair structure for all to see. Of all of the beautiful spaces and nice touches in that project, my favorite is the names on the stairs. It's their design, a collaboration between the steel workers, the providers, the kids, and all we did was facilitate a little bit. That's what drives me all these years later. We all contribute our time and effort, our passions and skills to see their design, their goals and aspirations come to be.
Last week, the Supreme Court of the United States began to hear oral arguments regarding the validity of a ruling by the Colorado Supreme Court banning Donald Trump from the ballot due to his participation in a failed coup on January 6, 2021. And judging by the tenor of the arguments and the comments made by the conservatives on the court, pundits have surmised that the ruling will be overturned and that Donald Trump will be allowed to assume the Republican nomination despite being a traitor. Now, I'm not sure that we should be surprised. Right? Trump installed 3 of the 6 conservatives, and the other 3 are radicals, which doesn't mean that they are stupid. Brett Kavanaugh laid out a seemingly logical loophole for the court to fall through in its effort to undermine democracy by appealing to the liberal value of good governance. Sparring with the attorneys seeking to bar Trump from the ballot, Kavanaugh responded, "Your position has the effect of disenfranchising voters to a significant degree," as if conservatives have ever cared about enfranchising voters. That's not one of their values. Not from the moment when they wrote the 3/5 compromise and gave a disproportionate representation to slave states in the House of Representatives, at the Constitutional Convention, to the Jim Crow literacy tests, to barring felons from the right to vote while simultaneously enacting laws that specifically targeted at-risk communities. Conservatives hate voter access. So it is, what do you call that kind of argument? Disingenuous. Let's just call it disingenuous. But they love to use our values against us because it works really well. We are easily manipulated by that. It gives the illusion that they are playing the same game that we are when they are not. And we walk around wondering, how did we get to this point in history? Without realizing that we are playing by rules that are not the rules of the game. The rules have changed, and we have just refused to admit it because that would mean we'd have to behave differently, and we don't really want to behave differently. We really enjoy pretending that the social contract still exists and that our values matter. It doesn't, and they don't. The social contract under liberals and progressives is understood as rooted in a fundamental moral commitment to uphold human dignity and to address the suffering of marginalized groups. It is not merely a rational calculation, it is a call to empathy and to love. It is an acknowledgement that social inequalities exist and have existed since the founding of this nation. And it is our responsibility as members of a healthy democracy to correct these inequalities and to improve the conditions of the least advantaged in society. In the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, we achieved the apex of these values being shared nationally, but they have been under assault for the last 50 years as the Christian nationalists rebranded themselves in order to unravel this nascent but promising reimagination of what it could mean to be an American. Now, I've been recently going down a rabbit hole, this podcast rabbit hole, about Jerry Falwell, the founder of the Moral Majority and Liberty University. And I was surprised to learn that the awakening of evangelical activism in the 70s was not initially animated by the Roe versus Wade decision in 1973. What initially upset these Southern white so-called Christians was integration. The government was forcing schools to provide equal access and funding, and in response, evangelicals created private academies cloaked under the banner of Christianity that allowed them to continue segregation. Falwell opened Lynchburg Christian Academy in 1967 as a segregationist school, and then developed it as a ministry of his Thomas Road Baptist Church. Liberty University was founded in 1971, the same year that the IRS challenged the tax-exempt status of Bob Jones University for its exclusion of black applicants. The story that evangelicals love to tell is that they entered politics due to their outrage over Roe, but Jerry Falwell did not preach his first anti-choice sermon until 1978. But abortion is a much better cover for their vengeance on the government than, for enforcing equality than championing white supremacy. The moral majority went on to have a massive political impact. They were a major player that got Ronald Reagan elected. They got him elected over the Baptist Sunday school teacher, Jimmy Carter, because Carter favored integration, civil rights, and universal health care. Ronald Reagan continued the effort to undermine the social contract by deregulating media ownership and abandoning the fairness doctrine, which mandated that broadcast networks had to allow for contrasting views on issues of public importance as a condition for getting their broadcasting license renewed. And this gave us the megalodon called Fox News that ate everything in sight. And now we all know that Fox News has enjoyed a massive viewership, and it's a united thinking on the right, but it has also had a tangible impact on our lives. A study from Emory University political scientist Gregory Martin and Stanford economist Ali Urukolgu quantified the actual value of Fox News on Republican presidential candidates in 2004 and 2008, estimating that George Bush the minor, his share of the vote would have been 3.59 points lower in 2004, meaning John Kerry would have won. And John McCain's share would have been 6.3 points lower if not for Fox News, meaning Barack Obama, his victory would have been a landslide with 60% of the vote. Now, this isn't to say that the religious right hasn't been deeply invested in silencing women's voices, denying access to power and access to birth control. Of course they have been, and they are. The religious right is misogynistic. It's just that we've allowed them to perpetuate a narrative that captures a moral position, right? The defense of the life of the unborn has been used as a wedge to unravel the social contract. It took Jerry Falwell 5 years to realize how to mobilize people around abortion, but he'd been deep in the trenches trying to disenfranchise black people, women, and queer people for well over a decade at that point. The gains that had been made by the political activists in the 60s and the 70s were made possible by an uncompromising dedication to fairness and equality. There was a resoluteness that characterized the various movements, a resoluteness that I don't think really exists today. The religious right may tell themselves a fiction about where their origin story comes from, but we also tell ourselves a fiction that the ballot box created the changes in the social contract, and not that it was our unwillingness to compromise for anything less than equality. And the Christian nationalists have escalated tensions and polarized the social landscape. And in doing so, progressives have assumed a passive stance in hopes of maintaining peace and dialogue. We think there is a value in reaching across the aisle to find compromise. We practically make our leaders say this when we do not demand reciprocity. In fact, the Christian terrorist movement in America demands that they don't. Compromise gets you removed from power because you don't compromise with the enemy. That's their position. And we are the enemy. But we want to pretend like appeasement will work. It didn't work with Neville Chamberlain. With Hitler, for those of you who don't know who that is. It didn't work with Neville Chamberlain, and it won't work now. They have told us who they are. Why don't we believe them? And I don't think this really has to do with them at all. I think a lot of it has to do with us. We like to believe that we are tolerant people, and that through dialogue we can convince folks who don't agree with us that equality for all people is better. Many of us have MAGA people in our families, and we see good sides to them. Right? They love our kids. They can be funny sometimes. Not as funny as us, but, sometimes. They show up sometimes when we need help. All of that's true. Not every MAGA person is a sociopath. But we're clinging to this idea that it's just an issue of education. Right? If only we can just show them the proof. It's not. Education teaches you facts, but it cannot teach you virtues. And on some level, we know this, but we don't want to give up on the performative character that we play as a tolerant person. That's really important to us, to be perceived as tolerant. Somewhere, the uncompromising values of the 1960s and 70s and 80s, right? Remember ACT UP? Who remembers ACT UP? Totally, they were like, no, we're not doing anything. We are winning. And they did. Somewhere, it became gauche to do that. And now tolerance, avoiding conflict, maintaining peace, creating dialogue came to define us. And we don't want to give it up, even as we watch the Supreme Court signal that it's going to allow a seditionist to run for president. Oh, they were appointed by legal means. Better luck next time. There won't be a next time. Let me rephrase that. If we continue on the course we are on, the course that values decorum and respectability, there won't be a next time. The religious right uses those values against us because we are so self-involved and we like to be seen as reasonable, rational people that we get outplayed into a corner because we think the game is played by a rule of fairness. No. The game is, are you going to fight? That's the game. Are you going to fight? Are we willing to sacrifice the image we like to have of ourselves as kind, literate folks, do the crossword, believe in education? We're afraid of angering them any more than we already have and risking an even bigger backlash. The White Walkers are over the wall, and we're trying to figure out how to negotiate with them down in Westeros, right? For those of you who watched Game of Thrones. White Walkers aren't so bad. They're people. It's time to give up the illusion that they are going to stop at the White House and stop at the Supreme Court. They were screaming states' rights until Roe got overturned, and then they were like, we're taking abortion rights everywhere. Immediately they said that. Lindsey Graham said that like a week after Roe. States' rights until now, right? It wasn't about government overreach. It's because they don't believe that black people, queer people, and women are equals. And they don't want to empower them. Soon, state rights is not going to mean anything anywhere. Abortion is going to be illegal everywhere. Teaching history that does not support white supremacy is going to be illegal everywhere. Same-sex marriage, I'm sorry, that's going to be illegal. It will be taken away. Unless we give up the image of ourselves as reasonable people and learn how to fight. You may think this is a political sermon. This is not a political sermon. This is about who are we? This is Arjuna in the chariot deciding, like, do I get up and fight? What do I do? Yeah, we get up and fight. We have dharma. Not because I'm going to be the last one to lose. So I have to do it because there are going to be people who lose before me. It's not for me. It's not for you. We're all going to be the last ones to lose. We're pretty privileged. Everyone, if you made it into this room, you're pretty privileged. Putting, a bumper sticker on our car saying, well-behaved women rarely makes history, does not make our Priuses cooler. And it's not any indication that we misbehave. If anything, it's performative, giving the impression that we're fighters when we're really not. And I know some of you are going to come up afterwards and be like, I was a fighter. I'm great. I'm talking about the collective we, right? So not the I. I'm talking about we as a people. And also the we that's not here. That's who we really need to be fighting for. This is about the social contract that defends the most vulnerable among us. We are walking into a dictatorship because collectively we are letting it happen. And we've got to become more authentic as a people. I don't care if there's a backlash by the right wing. Why would I care if a racist, misogynistic movement thinks about me? I don't care. I don't care that the Bible says. I don't care. I don't believe in your Bible. Which is not to invalidate it as a text. That doesn't work on me. I don't follow it. And I didn't unintentionally leave out homophobia. I don't love that word because I feel like it's obscure. They're homophobia, fear of gay people. They don't fear gay people. They don't respect gay people. And they don't think gay people should have any rights. That's not fear. They hate gay people. They kill gay people. It's not because they're afraid. We're in this really unique geographic location, and I don't mean being next to D.C. I don't even mean being next to the slave plantation that lent its name to the church. I mean, we're close to the Lorton Prison in Occoquan. And it's been turned into an arts facility, but if you haven't made it down there, that is hallowed ground. It's hallowed ground. This is where the suffragists from the National Women's Party were imprisoned for protesting out in front of the White House when they were blocking traffic while seeking the right to vote. And they were led by misbehaving women like Alice Paul and Lucy Burns. And the NWP had split from the more established National American Women's Suffragist Association, who they just saw as moving too slowly and wanting to compromise too much. So the NWP engaged in direct action, which got them labeled as unladylike, even by their peers. But they had stopped caring whether you called them unladylike. They'd stopped caring because they knew that the right to vote meant liberation, and that was more important than what someone thought about them. And at one point, President Wilson had had enough of the protesters, so he sent them to Lorton, and I'm quoting the National Park Service here, where he sent them to Lorton where they were forced to strip naked, sprayed with water, given rough and dirty uniforms. The wardens blocked them from contacting their families. They crowded into dirty, freezing cells. The beans and hominy rice all had worms in it. And they were arguing that they were political prisoners, so they went on a hunger strike. And after several days, the guards force-fed them by holding them down and shoving tubes up their noses and down their throats and pumped raw eggs into them. And they did not stop because the right to vote was about liberation. And on the orders of the prison warden, W.H. Whitaker, workhouse guards brutalized them. They handcuffed Lucy Burns in her cell with her hands over her head, forcing her to stand overnight. They pushed Dora Lewis so hard that her head smashed into an iron bed frame, knocking her unconscious. Despite prisoners' pleas, the guards refused to call a doctor. 20-year-old Dorothy Day, who would later launch the Catholic worker movement, was lifted twice by guards and slammed down over a metal bench. I thought she was tough before I learned that. I don't mean to diminish the point of the bumper sticker, right? I actually really like that bumper sticker. It makes me smile every time I see it. It's just that misbehaving it can be brutal. So I'm sympathetic to our preference for compromise and decorum and dialogue. Truly, I would much rather be engaging in dialogue than getting slammed down over a metal bench. But you can't be in dialogue with people who don't believe in dialogue. Neville Chamberlain found out the hard way. So I suspect that the Supreme Court will find a way to invalidate the Colorado ruling and allow a seditionist to run for president because their belief in inequality and exclusion is stronger than their belief in the law. And Donald Trump has already told us what he plans to do on day one. And when someone tells you who they are, you should believe them. The more important question is, what do we tell people about us? Who do we say we are? If we say we believe in social equality and justice, then we need to enforce that. And if we don't want to enforce that, we need to stop saying we believe in that. Either way, a sacrifice has to be made. If we want to be authentic people, we need to sacrifice our vision of ourselves as people who hold the line if we don't hold the line. Or we need to sacrifice our decorum and good behavior and our grasping onto being seen as people with good character, or we've already lost. They will not stop at the White House. They will not stop until everything is under their dominion. Martin Niemöller is perhaps most famous for his quote, "First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. And then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I'm not a Jew. I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." But what is often left out is that prior to his arrest, 1937, Niemöller voted for the Nazis in 1933. He participated in right-wing and anti-Semitic political parties and organizations. He was a fervent nationalist and anti-communist. Martin Niemöller wasn't just silent, he was complicit. He just didn't think it would happen to him. What else will we tolerate? 3-2-3. Break not the circle. 3-2-3. Please join me in the extinguishing of our chalice. It's printed in the order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Source of life, God, my darling, inspire us to find our strength and courage in the people all around us, to look into their eyes and know what we are fighting for, the worth and the dignity of every being. Awaken us to that deep, deep presence where all are interwoven, interpenetrated by every other thing. There is no Republican or Democrat, no Unitarian or nationalist. There is only presence. And fill us with grace so that we might find the way to put down the limitations we create, the concerns we have about being seen as uncompromising, so that we can be uncompromising for the least, for the most vulnerable, for all of life. Amen. Please join us for coffee after the service.